one of these days. I have all these movies I want to do, like the metaphysical story of Star Wars, the metaphysics of Princess Bride. I think that'd be a really fun one to do. But today, it's idea power, the power of ideas. You know, ideas control our destiny. They tell us about our lives. You know, there was this guy that was complaining to his doctor. He says, I have blurry eyes and my face is flush and I feel sick all the time. I can't. My ears are ringing and so doctor says, I don't know. Let me do some tests and no results. So he went to another doctor and complained the same thing. And the doctor says, I think it's your tonsils. So he took his tonsils out and same thing. Still had ringing, blurry eyes and flushed face. So went to another doctor, and the doctor says, no, I think it's your wisdom teeth. So he took his wisdom teeth out. He still had the same problem. Went to another doctor. This doctor says, I got this really great treatment. It's this goat gland thing. Try that. I'm sure it'll work. He tried it. It didn't work. Went to another doctor. This doctor says, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you've got 6 months to live. Oh, my God, 6 months to live. So he decides, if I only got 6 months, I might as well take a tour of the world. So he's going to take a trip around the world. He decides he would get some clothes for his trip. And he goes and seeks out a tailor, and he sees a tailor, and the tailor measures, and he says, neck size 16 and a half. He says, no, it's 15 and a half. And he says, no, your neck size is 16 and a half. No, I should know. My neck size is 15 and a half. He says, whatever, dude, but don't come complaining to me because, if you wear that size shirt, your eyes are going to get all blurry, your face is going to be flush. The power of an idea. Your ideas can be quite limiting to your life. Oh, gosh. But ideas, everything begins as an idea. Before a form, there's an idea. This is the start of it all. Now, ideas are quite... Our life is seen in a series of ideas, a series of forms that begin visually. I don't know how many of you do this, but my ideas, my thoughts do not start out as words. They start as a vision, as an image of something, and then I assign words to it that are frequently inadequate to describe the idea that I've had anyway. So then I have to go out and make the idea happen in the world, and that gets a little closer to it, but still, it's not always synonymous with what that first vision was. But basically, an idea, it's kind of hard to define, but it's easy to describe sometimes. An idea is when you take all the aspects of a situation, right? All the aspects of a situation. And then you make it nice and simple, all right? You take all the loose ends and you tie it in a knot. The knot is the idea. It's when everything has come together. One of the books I was reading this week, and I found this on my shelf and I thought, well, this is really a great book. Why have I not read this before? Then I turned the page and saw all these highlights in it. Wow, I think I've read this before. That's an idea. But in it, this guy named Jack Foster, he says, and the book is called How to Get Ideas. He says, an idea is nothing more nor less than a new combination of old elements. And I love that thought. When you think about it, when you get an idea, it really comes from an amalgamation of all the experiences you've had in your life. And they're coming together, and sometimes desperate ideas, desperate concepts, things that don't seem related at all, kind of come together, and boom, you get this sort of inspiration. You get this new idea. But it's a new idea that's combining some old ways of being, coming back into a new experience. And so there's power in this understanding. There's power in how this works. And that's kind of what I wanted to get around about today, is that a lot of us think for some reason that we're not creative, that I don't have good ideas. That idea that you're not creative, that you don't have good ideas, is like wearing a 15.5-inch shirt when you got a 16.5-inch neck. You actually do have ideas. We are all extremely creative. Creativity is not something unusual, and it's not something that is the province of people who create art or music or come up with ad campaigns or anything like that. Any thought that you have is creativity. It's creation happening. It cannot stop that. Even in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. In the beginning was the Word. But I tell you what, before the beginning was the idea of the Word, was the image of the Word. And that's where I want you to be, in that space of understanding that kind of creativity is available for you. And when you know that that kind of creativity is available to you, it's easy to get ideas. Once you know they're out there, it's not a hard time to find out that you can have one or two yourself when you know there's infinite ideas available to you. This same guy, Jack Foster, talks about, he spent some time in the ad world, and he talks about working on the Smokey the Bear campaign, that every year they had to come up with a poster for Smokey the Bear. Every year. He worked for 20 years on his campaign. Now, you remember Smokey the Bear, right? I mean, Smokey Bear, he's got like, what does he do? What's his whole focus? Exactly. Every year he has to come up with a whole new campaign to say, prevent forest fires. That sounds like it couldn't be like, wow, how do you do that? But they did over 20 years. 300 different posters they actually designed on that same idea. And, you know, in a lot of ways, I'll be right honest with you here, folks. Science of mind, it's pretty simple. It really is. It's got one idea. There's one life. That life is God. That life is your life and my life right now. Change your thinking, change your life. You are creative. You are an expression of God. There's three things right there. Okay? So what do I get to do? I got to come up with 52 weeks of trying to say that same thing. I have a Smokey Bear issue with life. But you know what? The beauty of that, if we extend it forward to all our individual lives, we have that same experience. It may seem that our lives are routine and mundane, but they're not. They're opportunities to do what Edison did when he was creating the light bulb. He went through a lot of filaments before he found out the one that worked. And every time he found one that didn't work, he went, well, there's another one that I know I cannot use. It wasn't like, oh, I failed. So when we're looking at our lives and we're thinking, God, I've done this thing that's done there before, remember, there's a lot of ideas. Just remember Smokey Bear, and you can come up with another idea. It's just that simple. That's how this stuff works, you see. The creative mind, I love this idea. The creative mind is the one that looks for unnecessary likenesses. When things don't seem alike and you can find that they are alike, that's when you open up the door to that new idea. That's why I experience the gap all the time with you. I would keep going to that space because in that space, that's where things that don't seem like they're related suddenly come up. Like sneezing in the middle of the service. That turned out to be an idea that I could bless everybody after the meditation was over. That's weird stuff. How does that happen? Because we go into this space of finding these things that don't seem related whatsoever, and we find a relationship to them, and that's what makes us creative. That's when we get to use our ideas. Lincoln Steffens, I had to look this guy up. Lincoln Steffens was a reporter for the New York Times back in the turn of the last century, and he said that nothing is done and everything in the world remains to be done or done over. Wow, what permission that gives us all to think that, first off, it ain't done, and if it is done, I could do it better. And it's been done all the time. That's what we get to do. That was the Smokey Bear experience, you know? So when you're thinking about the challenges in your life and how maybe this has been done before, think again. I mean, think about Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook. The guy who did MySpace thought he had done it. And then Zuckerberg came along and did it over. And look at what he came up with, right? It's the largest community in the world. It's the largest, I guess, nation in a way in the world. Over 1 billion people are on Facebook. It only started like in 2004. That's an amazing thing. And I didn't know they owned Instagram and WhatsApp. Guy's got it all going on. Steve Jobs. He's another one of those, you know? The computer had been made, but he did it over, made it simple, did it again. So if there's something that you're thinking about, oh, been there, done that, forget it. Burn your t-shirt and do it over. You know that? Been there, done that, got a t-shirt? You know that one? I like that one. Been there, done that, got a t-shirt. The other thing that's interesting to think about is the stuff that gets in the way of us, the stumbling blocks to our creativity. Like, oh man, that's just your imagination. We poo-poo imagination like it's trivial, but it's not. Just your imagination is the opening to your greatest moments of creativity. But just your imagination can also be the stumbling block to it. You know, we talk about taking selfies all the time. You can have that. I haven't done this in a while. Hi, everybody. Give me a wave. Nice. I never get you guys over here. I know you're over there. Let me get over there. Hi, everybody. Nice. Y'all are over here in the dark. This side's over. Why is this side so much darker? Hi, everybody. Hi. Yeah. All right. But I did that to say, oh, yes. Mental selfies. Take a mental selfie when you run into a situation where you're not thinking that you're in your creative space. Take a thought, take a mental selfie. What am I thinking about? Am I living in a space of doubt? I mean, think about all these times. Oh, Cam Newton. I mean, best quarterback in the season last year. MVP in the NFL. Went to the Super Bowl. Right? I mean, forget the fact that who's the team that won? Denver. They had a good defense. Okay. Fair enough. But he completely went flat. I would bet if you took a mental selfie of him during the game, it went doubt, 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 doubt. If we get into the doubt, if we're living in that space of doubt, we're not going to do very well in our creative, using our idea power. Think about the guy who is like, he's the golfer you've never heard of, and he's leading the first round of the Masters, right? And then the next day, he's 8 over par. Because, he went in there, can I do this again? We get into the second guessing of ourselves. Remember, there are an infinite number of creative ideas out there. All we're asking for you to do is come up with 1 or 2 out of the infinite number. When you think about putting doubt on yourself, doubt in your ideas, you are breaking the 6th commandment. Do anybody know the sixth commandment? See, that's why you're here in this church. That's why we changed the name from church to a center. So we continue to not have you feeling guilt. We don't like the guilt. I will help you. Thou shalt not kill. That's the 6th. It's the 6th. It's the 5th? It's the 6th. I did. I've been in this church too. But here's the thing about it though. That's a mistranslation. The bigger point is that's a mistranslation. The translation is actually, thou shalt not murder. Thou shalt not murder. I mean, come on, read the Bible, folks. God was about killing all kinds of people in the Bible. He sent the Israelites out to kill all the Canaanites. I mean, chop off their heads and take their kids. I mean, he did all kinds of crazy things in the Old Testament. So the killing was okay. It was the murder that was the unjustified murder. That's what they were talking about. But let me take this off a little further. When you're living in doubt, you're murdering your creativity. You're murdering your ideas. You don't want to do that. You want to let them live and become expressed. Use the power of creativity within you to let that come out into the world, because we all need your ideas. Maybe we should be talking about you instead of Mark Zuckerberg and Steve Jobs and Henry Ford and Thomas Edison. Why couldn't we talk about Saul and stuff he's doing? Or Patrick? Well, we already do talk about Patrick and stuff he's doing because he's doing crazy stuff. And Cheryl and Brad, why are we not doing that? So get these ideas out here and let's hear about the next thing that Ralph's going to fix at your house for you. You still doing that, right? Yep. All right. Good. Because we got some stuff around here that's broken. I need your help. Dr. Holmes tells us the limitations we have encircling us have but one source. They spring from our thought. Now that's a powerful thing to remember, because if they spring from our thought, they can be bounced out by our thought. The same energy that has the doubt thought, that same amount of energy is what the brain needs to have the positive thought. And after today's talk, hopefully you'll remember that I have the ability to make the changes, to create the ideas. There's an infinite power within me that's just dying to be expressed, so much so that it keeps urging me forward to do new and different things with my life. This is what it's all about. This is how to get past the stumbling blocks and breaking through. Because what you want to do is you want to free your mind from the doubt. And by doing so, you expand the experiences in your life. And you have a much more fluid, fun, joyous experience of life. And that's what it's all about anyway. None of us are brought here to suffer, to have pain. Well, maybe to have pain, but not to suffer. Right? Pain is a part of it. I mean, if it weren't a part of it, I don't think the birthing experience would be as problematic as it is. So there must be something related to the pain. But the suffering part, why should we need to suffer at all? We can move through that because we have this ability to free our mind of our doubts, to free our minds from the things that cause us pain, and to realize that there are infinite possibilities for good in our lives. And if we know that and live it, right, know it the way you know, boom, that's going to fall. No doubt about it, right? But do we have that same faith in this law of mind that allows us to change our lives? I don't think we do. Take the mental selfie, and I'm sure that in the background you will see that someone has Snapchat doubt on the back of your picture. We have the doubt, but we can move beyond the doubt and know with the same assurance that you will try to save grandma's cup before it hits the ground. You'll have that same assurance in your ability to put your ideas into action in your life. That same guy I was talking about, Jack Foster, a little while ago. That same guy, Jack Foster, I was talking about a little ago. He taught ad classes for a while, and one of the assignments he would give them is, I want you to go home tonight and come up with a poster for a particular ad campaign. And frequently, over 15 years of teaching this class, some students would come back and say, I just couldn't figure anything out. I couldn't come up with anything. One year he got an idea to change the assignment, and so he said, okay, over lunch, I want you to come up with 10 posters for this idea. And sometimes people would come back after lunch with 20 posters for the idea. Isn't that interesting? So frequently when we're looking for an idea, we're looking for the perfect idea. Can I share something from the Tuesday morning? We had the Tuesday morning poetry class. You know what I'm going to share about? And it was, what was the line? It was like, what is your most happy moment? It was a poetry line about when were you last happy? The line in the poetry was, when were you last happy? And then we went around the room to share about it, and Kathy Burt was like, and Darlene had the same experience, thinking about when was I last happy? Well, let's see. What was my happiest moment? They went to that perfect happy moment instead of realizing that there's a bunch of happy moments going on. Darlene all the way back, she is, when was I most happy? Oh, when I got married. Wait a minute, surely I've been happy since then. You know? But that's where our mind goes when we're faced with a problem. We go to this place of what is the solution instead of a place of what is a solution, or what are some solutions, you know? So don't try to think about what is the one poster I need to come up with tomorrow. How about 20 posters? And if you do that, you free your mind up. The reason people work in teams is so they'll have somebody to blame when it goes wrong. No. No, the reason people work in teams is because you can say something in a team that will spark somebody else to say something, that'll spark somebody else to say something, and the idea goes a little bit bigger. So if you find yourself flustered around the problem and coming up with a solution or the solution, call somebody that you trust and share it with them and team up together and see what happens when you're using the infinite one mind that's common to all people. You may find that your solution is in somebody else's head waiting to come out. This is how this works. You know, the next one. Treat yourself every day that you are a font of ideas, that ideas bubble forth from you like water from a spring. Isn't that sweet? A font, I love that word font. A font of ideas. They bubble forth like water from a spring. In Texas, they have a lot of springs, and the springs end up having these pools There was this beautiful spring outside of Austin. Well, there are a bunch of them, but this one I really loved, called Hamilton's Pool. This gorgeous pool, and it was down in a hole, so they had cliffs up above, and moss growing, and water dripping down, and it's just like, paradise, you know? And these springs are all over Central Texas. So I moved here to California, and I'm driving. I got my 4x4 4Runner. I'm so in love with it, and I'm driving up through the San Jacinto Mountains, you know? And I see a sign that says spring, and it's pointing. So that's great. So I start driving toward this spring. This has nothing to do with the talk. So just stay with me. It might be time I'm over. Who knows? These are unnecessarily unlikenesses that might become necessary. Let's see what happens. So I'm driving up to this spring, and I keep driving, and I'm looking, and I see the sign. It goes this way, and I'm driving, and I'm getting pretty high up in the mountains now, and I'm thinking, boy, this is going to be really spectacular, that there's going to be a pool up here in the mountains like this, you know? And I finally get to the very top, and there's a little sign, spring, and it's pointing, and there's a spigot coming up out of the ground. I was like, wow. They got funny springs here in California. It wasn't quite the right spring. But, see, it has nothing to do with anything. But I like that story because it always reminds me of how we think about things, you know? When you think about something, you have an idea, an image about something, and sometimes you might have to expand that idea a little bit, hopefully in the reverse, that you'll find instead of the small spring, you'll find the big spring. Go from the spigot to the big pool, hopefully. Now, the whole talk is about idea power. So, should I do Saint Teresa? So Saint Teresa is, no, I won't do that. How many of you remember that? Yeah? Try to forget it, please. And those of you who were not here, ask somebody who was here about the Saint Teresa riding the horse across the river, and I tried to tell a joke, and it was so flat, so I told it again. It was so flat. And so now, whenever a joke doesn't land, I just go, Saint Teresa, and everybody laughs. It's great. So the whole point here this week is idea power. We're doing the whole month about power, expressions of power. We did love power. We did patterning power. Now we're doing idea power. To empower your idea, to truly empower your idea, you must treat and move your feet. You see, the idea is nothing until it becomes something. I think that's actually one of the quotes. Yes, Jack Foster says, an idea is not an idea until something happens with it. Isn't that interesting? Until then, it's just a floating thing in your brain. Make it happen. Make it real. Bring it to life. A friend of mine, Richie, tells this story. He was in recovery, and I hope he's not watching because I just outed him, and that's not the way that's supposed to work. I'll have to call him later, make an amends. So he tells this story about how he finally accepted a power greater than himself that could help him in his life, and that he let this power be in control of his life, and his life got better. You know, he was doing the work, he was rowing his boat, and God was his captain, right? And then it got really well, and he thought, this is pretty good. I like this the way God's steering my life. It's pretty good. And so he kind of let go of the oars, and he noticed that the boat started kind of meandering and going in circles, and he was like, what happened? He prayed, and in his prayer he heard, God don't row. God don't row. God doesn't bake the cookies. God will not make your idea happen. God created you so that you can make the ideas happen. So these ideas that are within you are your job to bring out into the world. Now, the great thing is the world loves to conspire with you to bring your ideas into fruition, you know, and that's how this works. Like the story that Patty read this morning, where she ended up in first class because her daughter had these tickets. She never had to pay for the first class ticket. You want to go, you want to go to first class. The story I tell all the time is a foundation student years ago wanted a new car. The reason she wanted a new car, turns out that she was getting to work late on the bus and she wanted to get to work on time. Well, instead of getting a new car, what actually happened was somebody in her office moved out of an apartment that was very close to work so she could walk to work, and she was at work all the time. She didn't need a new car at all. In the end, all she wanted to do was to be at work on time, and she ended up in an apartment right next to where she worked almost, so she was at work on time all the time. Sometimes the universe will bring to you what you need in a very detouring kind of route, but you will get what you want, but you must put it out there and begin to do the work. Treat and move your feet. God don't bake the cookies. God don't row, but know that the deed is in the seed. When you plant the plant, what's coming is already everything necessary for that plant to bring its fruit. Everything necessary for the tomato that's in the garden right now to be a tomato was in the seed, was in the starter plant, because I didn't start the tomato with seeds. That must be really hard to do it that way, because it seems like they always sell starters for tomatoes. Anybody in here ever start their tomatoes from seed? Nice. I applaud you. I applaud you all. I applaud you all. I always cheat. I go for the starters because I want them fast. I'm an American. That's how that works. But the point is that we have this power within us, and as we trust the law, we trust the universe to bring things to us, as we trust the law and we allow it to work in our lives, bringing our ideas into fruition, they will become real and experiences for us. This is the way it works. But it doesn't work if you have the doubt, if you haven't taken the mental selfie and taken a look at where your limitations are and what limitations you're putting upon yourself. If that's where you are, work on the limitations to be removed and then get back to the business of the idea. Dr. Holmes says, the only way for us to prove a theory we believe in, I know it's going to do this. The only way for us to prove a theory we believe in is correct. The only way to prove a theory we believe in is correct is to set our reading aside and start doing. We must get about the business of doing in order to make it happen. You have the power. You have the ideas. Now it's time to row your boat. Bake your cookies. Start your tomatoes from seed. And so it is. Brings us to our affirmation, and I had an idea that truth should be idea, so this is different slightly from the affirmation we did earlier by one word. Here we go. Here's an idea. Not only do I live in an infinite universe filled with limitless possibilities, I use this idea for my good and the good of the world. Yes, yes. Let's do some prayer. All right. Take a deep breath with me, would you? I like to remind myself always that there is one life. That life is God. That life is my life and the life of every person in this room, every person watching us online, every person that's in our minds right now. And so we use this understanding that we are living within the one life to know that the word that we speak, the ideas that we hold, the intentions that we set through this prayer travel out through that one consciousness, that one life, to be realized as the experiences and the expressions of those we hold in our hearts and minds in this moment. So if you're thinking around someone who is challenged with a relationship, dealing with some kind of drawn toward habits that don't serve their highest and best good, maybe thinking too much about the lacks and the limitations in their lives, if you know that person or you are that person, join me now as we shift consciousness to the possibilities that are existing right on the other side of that thought. That there is indeed an infinite universe filled with infinite ideas looking for expression through you. Open yourself up to be that vehicle for a larger expression of God in the world as wholeness, as harmony, as abundance, as right relationship, as divine guidance, inspiration, protection, love, compassion, empathy, justice. For we know that there are many areas in the world that need all of those God qualities, and if any of those areas grab our attention, let me invite you to this idea that it gets your attention means it needs your attention. Jump in, both feet. You are a font, a wellspring of ideas bubbling forth to bring those areas of concern to solution. Take the challenge. Take the charge. Use your idea power. Change the patterns in the world and be that loving force for good. This is my call. This is my charge. This is my declaration for each and every one of us. And I know that the law hears that. And so I am so grateful for the power of the presence of the mind and the law that works with it, that allows us to become real in each of our experiences. Life is good. Know it with me. Affirm it as we release this prayer into the law by saying, and so it is.